Well, now, the Cape Melville affair still reverberating 4 days after the CJC's lengthy report into the saga. Today, 2 Environment Department officials in the far north, the only people singled out for punishment by the CJC, are striking back with searing criticisms of their own department and the Goss government. One of them, Peter Stanton, has been with the department for 30 years, but he says he doesn't care if he's sacked, the truth has to be told. Supporting him is Executive Director of the Cape York Land Council, Noel Pearson, who says it's incredible that the only people targeted for punishment by the CJC are those who were effective in halting foxtail smuggling. The report did not recommend action against Paul Barbagallo, a self-confessed foxtail poacher, nor his brother David, who admitted lying to protect his brother. It's an especially bitter pill for Stanton, who was demoted by the previous National Party government when he took a stand over the road through the Daintree rainforest. I asked him if it wasn't true, though, that he had acted well outside departmental guidelines.
No, Cathy, certainly not well outside of them, because I'd never been aware of the guidelines. I'm not disputing they exist, but it's obviously not all that significant.
Why is it not all that significant? Surely any employer would be a bit astonished at an employee who purposefully withheld information for 24 hours because they thought another department, namely the police, would handle it more to their liking.
Well, it depends on how rapidly information should be transmitted. It was not my intention to avoid transmitting the information at all. There was a delay in doing that.
But there was a reason for that delay, wasn't it? Because you wanted the police to get hold of this issue before your own department.
Yes, of course, Cathy.
Why was that?
Well, there'd been plenty of evidence from the last several months of the previous Wadgetia palm season that the department would not take any action on matters that were happening there. It seemed to me the best way to get action would be to put the matter in the hands of the police and outside the department's jurisdiction.
So you're asking us to believe, Mr. Stanton, that the only people who acted correctly in this matter are the very people, the only people, the CJC found ought to be disciplined?
Cathy, I was a very small nut in the basket, and I was found to have an unflawed shell. I didn't lie to anybody, and I didn't mislead anybody. Yet it was found appropriate that I was the one that should be cracked with the sledgehammer. I don't accept that.
You claim that never before have you seen the national parks of the Cape so lawless or worse administered than they are now.
The fact that I have known the parks probably ever since their gazettal. I'm one of the few people who are constantly on the ground in them. I find illegal activities wherever I go, evidence of illegal activities having occurred wherever I go. And my one visit to Cape Melville National Park, one single day there, uncovered lawless activities of staggering scale. And that is not the only problem going on in the park.
What else is going on there?
Cathy, in my journeys around the parks, I found evidence, a lot of sign of other illegal activities. Unfortunately, by the time I find them, they're well past and they can't be tracked down.
What other sorts of illegal activities?
Growing drugs, removal of plants, boundary incursions with clearing and logging in some cases, which require verification on the ground, people hunting, a whole range of offences.
How, you say lawless, you keep saying these parks are lawless. How lawless are they?
Well, lawless in a third world context in many cases. What I found in Cape Melville National Park, I have little doubt that if people had been in the camps and places where I found them when I arrived there, that my life could have been threatened.
Has your life ever been threatened in one of these parks?
No. Well, put it this way, I have had people walk up to my camp in the night. I have had people sneak up carrying guns and disappear when I spotted them. I have had people following me around while they were carrying arms. I have had people try to drive me off parks with dogs. No, my life hasn't been directly threatened, but I guess there's always a possibility my luck could run out one day.
Why have you decided to speak out in this extremely strong letter to the Cairns Post and indeed to us in a way that one would think would not endear yourself to your superiors at all?
Cathy, that's irrelevant to me. The important thing was anybody reading the headlines in the Cairns Post would assume that I had committed some offence, that I was guilty of some wrongdoing. If they read down a little bit further, it might have been clearer. I have the feeling that, as I said earlier, being a very small player in the whole thing, excessive retaliation is proposed against me. I don't accept that. I can't rely on the department to defend me. I must defend myself, and if the department doesn't accept that, then that's too bad.
What do you think will happen to you now?
I don't know, Cathy. I suppose at the extreme I could be dismissed. I'm not particularly perturbed. I feel the important thing is to speak out first and worry about what happens later. I've devoted a large part of my life to building up a strong national park system, both at the administrative and the field level. I have seen many parks being built up to the stage where they are working well and well managed, and I have watched them deteriorate. I think in the sum total I seem to be right back to square one where I was a long time ago, and I have to acknowledge that a large part of my career has been futile in that sense, particularly when I look at the prospects from here.
Senior Environmental Officer Peter Stanton and Environment Minister Molly Robson refused to be interviewed today, saying the issue was a departmental one, not for the public arena. But on radio last week she said disciplinary action would be taken against both Mr Stanton and Peter Harris. Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's been strong support for Stanton and Harris today from Noel Pearson of the Cape York Land Council. Cape Melville's due to be handed back to the local Aborigines, but Mr Pearson says in its current state it's a poisoned chalice. Mr Pearson, thanks for coming in. Now, you're calling Peter Stanton a scapegoat, but the report makes it quite clear he breached his duties. He chose not to inform his superiors of Pat Shears' actions as soon as possible. The CJC says that's indefensible.
The only breach that Peter Stanton made to the protocols was to instruct Shears to report the matter to the police. It seems to me that in public administration, people who resort to the law should not be brought to account for doing so. If he's breached some kind of arcane bureaucratic protocol about reporting to superiors first, it seems to me that he shouldn't be made the scapegoat for what has come to be known as the Cape Melville affair.
But the report makes it quite clear. He says himself he chose not to report to his own people for 24 hours in the hope that police would take action more along the lines of what he wanted than he expected his own department would.
Well, that came out of 25 years of lack of successful management and prosecution of offenders in the management of Cape Melville National Park and other conservation areas in North Queensland. It seems to me that this minor breach of protocol, to which he has admitted, is a minor issue compared to what is at the nub of the matter, and that is that there has not been, and there still is not, effective management of Cape York National Parks by the government. That is the nub of the issue. Peter Stanton has been a totally unbiased advocate for conservation protection in Cape York Peninsula. He was a pariah under the National Party government. He was stood down from his position as regional director because of political influence, in my view, in the past, and now he's being pilloried simply because he's been concerned about conservation management of national parks in the peninsula, not about the niceties of political management and political damage control management at the bureaucratic level.
Thanks for your time, Mr Pearson. Cape York Land Council Director Noel Pearson.